We are grateful, right, baby? We are grateful, and yeah, she said she did like me at 250 though, but I'm grateful for the way I look and
Yeah.
the way I feel. More important.
When you started January 6th, you weighed in at 244 pounds, and currently you're weighing around 223 pounds. So it's been a little bit of not a super rocky road, but again, we're only going off of 3 months,
Yeah,
kind of, and losing 20 pounds in 3 months I
pretty
would say it's kind
impressive.
of yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'd say it's kind of a big deal. So
Yeah,
definitely super happy with like how far you come. In terms of visual changes, so you're obviously always going to see changes on the scale, but now we're going to talk a little bit more about changes like visually that I saw.
okay.
So obviously this is you on the left, which is going to be January 6th, and then you on the right, which is going to be in March. So just going off of this picture, I want you to ask yourself, what are the biggest changes you notice just looking at yourself
Well,
between these two pictures?
overall, I look smaller.
Okay, you look smaller.
Yeah, there's
Cool.
uh, more definition, and I look just smaller.
Okay. Yeah, so some of the stuff that I saw that I thought was cool is that your midsection
Oh yeah,
has
yeah, yeah,
started
yeah.
to come in. So I'm starting to see like obviously your stomach is like reduced. You can see it kind of hangs over a little bit here, but here it's like
Yeah,
really coming in and you're even starting to see like a little bit of those V lines, which is like really,
yeah,
really cool. So that's how you know things are going in the right direction. You know,
yeah,
you're seeing the V lines and everything.
yeah.
And then when I look at stuff from the side, let me know what you think. Let me know what you see here.
Yeah, so that stomach's not hanging as much. We Yeah, it's that whole midsection just looks smaller.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to say my arms look a little bit more defined, but like that chest is it's just smaller all in all.
Yeah, I would say definitely like the man boobs
Yeah, are
are
gone.
like
Yeah,
are gone,
yeah,
which is
they're
great.
gone. Yeah,
I also notice on your face as well, you have less puffiness.
yeah,
So you can definitely see like, the change in the face there. And like you said, the midsection. So those are the main things I noticed. I also noticed that can't really, it's hard, a little bit hard to see because overall's here, but
yeah,
like your legs, they're looking like just tighter, which is
yeah.
great. And then going on to the back, let me know what you see here.
Those love handles.
Yeah.
Yeah, those love handles are just like not really there as much anymore.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, they're just not really there as much. It's harder to see with the legs, but um, posture's a little better.
Yeah.
Posture's definitely better. Um, and it's you see that V is well more defined. It's a lot more defined.
Way more defined.
Yeah, it's way more like you can see that my waist is smaller.
Yeah,
Definitely. That's a really big transfer. Like you can really see the different waist.
for sure. Yeah, I think this definitely helps represent. I think this is probably like out of the side by side comparisons, this is probably you see the biggest change here in the back,
Yeah,
as compared to the front. And I think the main reason why, just based off of what I've seen and what we're working with you, is you already had a really good base, genetically from like the front. Like you had a great chest and you had like, great shoulders as well. So from the front looking at you, you already are in like pretty good shape.
yeah.
And so seeing improvements in the front would take more time to see as opposed to seeing improvements in areas where you aren't necessarily as gifted, such as
Okay,
your back, for example.
gotcha.
Where I think your back is probably like your area of biggest opportunity where, in the next few months, as we're looking to kind of like add on some more muscle, this is probably where you probably see the most progress compared to any of your other muscles. So based off some of the stuff I saw was, you lower like your lower back fat, you're able to melt it, and your skin is just looks overall a little bit more tighter.
I'm not looking as flimsy. Like yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So now that we've talked a little bit more, like a little bit about your transformation, I want to get into a couple stuff that we spoke about. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today is like progressive overload, recovery, and then some other areas of recovery, and then some nutrition do's and don'ts, and abs, and how you're actually going to see them. So first things first, progressive overload. I'll give a quick explanation. Like we spoke about many times, this is literally just going to be adding on more weight to the exercises you're already doing week to week, and
Okay.
making sure that you are getting stronger in the exercises that you're doing. That's like the simplest way I can put it. Do you have any questions specifically on progressive overload, or should I go through the full explanation first?
No, I pretty much understand it. Like it's
Okay.
like once you get there, you're comfortable, then you're gonna progress in it. Just kind
Exactly.
of repeating what you said.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing, and this is just when it comes to programming in general, and we can speak about this a little bit more, but as you're looking to kind of add on a little bit more muscle, specifically with some of the areas that I've targeted. So let me just actually go to that for you right now. So in my opinion, I think your biggest areas of opportunity are your rear delts, your upper back, and your front delts. So this is going to be, in my opinion, your biggest area of opportunity. So your rear delts are the muscles that kind of like chill around here.
Yep.
Helps give your shoulder a more rounded look. As you can see, when I'm looking at you from the side, there's nothing at the back to kind of help support that shoulder look. Like
Okay.
you have big like side shoulders,
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily have the rear delts, which kind of like poke out at the back, which help
Yeah.
give you that 3D shoulder look. So that's
Awesome.
going to be one of your biggest areas of opportunity. The second area of opportunity that I see is your front delts. So yes, you have a great chest, but you don't have any front delts. You don't have the front delts that you should have to match the chest that you have right now.
Okay.
Which is typically weird because typically what I've noticed with people is front delts. You often train them a lot when you already are training your chest and doing like shoulder movements, and you have great shoulders, but
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have, I think, as good front delts
Yeah.
that you need to kind of like help give you that fuller look. So the front delt is literally like this muscle right here,
Yeah.
and it's a small muscle, but it does add to more of that aesthetic look.
Okay.
And it's something that I think that once you have the front delts and you have the rear delts, help you see the shoulders from the side, that will help round out your shoulders. And the last thing, we touched on this a little bit earlier, is one of the biggest areas of opportunity for you is going to be your back development, specifically your upper back, just for like overall aesthetics, giving you more structure and everything.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we build a plan which is going to help you kind of attack each of these different muscles
Okay.
at least twice a week. And we want to make sure that you're going until failure when you're training these muscles. So that's going to be like main areas of opportunity. And so now we spoke about progressive overload a little bit. What's going to be super important is the rep range that you set for each of the different muscles. So some muscles respond better to more reps, and some muscles respond better to less reps. For example, biceps. Biceps respond better to more volume. Or when you look at something like a lateral raise for your shoulders, that responds better to more volume. But then there's some muscles, as maybe like the front delts, or maybe even what's another one that doesn't really respond, that you don't need a whole volume to see growth, or your traps, for example. Those muscles, you don't necessarily need as much reps and as much volume as other muscles. So just in general, like a really good rule of thumb that you can use is like the 8 to 10 rep range does work for most exercises. And then in terms of the progressive overloading, what you want to do is as you're tracking your weight on a week-to-week basis, you want to make sure that you're adding about 2.5 to 5 pounds onto the heaviest lift of that specific exercise.
Yeah.
So say if you work your way up as you're doing bench press, you get more warm as you do your sets. By the time you get to your final set, you want to maybe make sure you're adding like 2.5 to 5 pounds week after week. And if you can do this like comfortably, and reach like the upper limit of the rep range that we set, that's going to allow you to progressively overload over time and get stronger, build more muscle, and see more progress.
Sounds good.
That makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, awesome. And then one of the other things that's going to be super important is if your strength consistently plateaus or drops, we can kind of look into taking a deload week, and we can speak a little bit more about that. You can feel free to let me know if you have any questions about that. So a deload week is going to be a week where you deliberately lift either less weight, less volume, to kind of give your muscles a chance to kind of breathe. You know,
Okay.
because obviously if you're putting more and more and more and more stress on them week after week after week after week, sometimes your muscles are, you know, they might stall your progress because they just really need more time to recover and you're
Hmm.
just pushing them too hard. So if we do get to a point where you're kind of like plateauing and you're noticing that you're not able to push past a certain number,
Hmm.
sometimes it's better to take a break. You intentionally lift less, and then you allow your muscles to kind of get a breather. And
Hmm.
so you can come back next week and hopefully push past that plateau. That's what a deload week is.
Gotcha.
Cool. And so the next thing is going to be recovery. So you're already really good at this. So sleep. One of the biggest misconceptions I see is that people think that just because they slept 7 hours or just because they slept 8 hours, that's enough. One of the things I really want to stress on is sleep quality over quantity. If you get like 5 hours of quality sleep, that's going to be better than 9 hours of not so great or not so quality sleep.
Yeah.
So again, I don't really need to speak to you about recovery because that's something that you're already really, really good at. Other area of recoveries that we've spoken about before is going to be like stretching. So we talked about like stretching, adding a little bit more mobility to your workouts, either before and after, is great.
Okay.
One of the other things that's great, I'm not sure if you know you are looking
I
to
own one. Yeah, I own one.
foam roller. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I do own
So
one.
yeah, if you can
Yeah.
throw those in, and then again, I know for the most part you finish your shifts a little bit later, and most of the time you finish your shifts, it's like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and LA Fitness is already closed. And so
Yes.
because they're closed, I know those guys have a sauna. I don't think Planet Fitness has a sauna.
No, they don't.
Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, but if you do, if there ever is a day where you know you get off a little bit early, I would say definitely make sure you can get to a sauna. Just helps with recovery and
Mhm.
everything.
How do you feel about the
Okay, so
red
now
light therapy?
I don't have enough knowledge on it to give a comment.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. So I wish I
Well,
could comment on it.
yeah,
I
yeah. My
I've
girlfriend
heard
bought me
it's
one
good.
for the house.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not sure how effective it really is,
yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah,
But you let me know if you're finding any benefit from
yeah. I
it.
will. I will. I
Okay,
will.
awesome. Okay, so these are some nutrition do's and don'ts for muscle gain while staying and like just keeping the frame that you currently have. So obviously one of the do's is going to be make sure you're prioritizing protein intake. So 0.1 to 0.8 to 1 grams per
Yeah,
pound of body weight is going to be what you're going for. Protein's obviously going to help you support your muscle growth and your muscle retention, which is important to make sure that you're not, because right now we're at a phase where you're happy with how you look. You just want to start adding some more muscle from here.
yeah,
To make sure you're only putting on muscle and not putting on fat is to make sure you're going to be in a calorie, I should say surplus. This is a surplus, a slight calorie surplus. And that just means that if your maintenance calorie is like 2,000,
yeah.
we're going to make sure that you're eating like only 2,250 calories, for example.
So
So
still
it's going to be a
watch the
slight
calories.
surplus.
Yeah,
The reason why it's going to be a slight surplus is because if you eat, your body naturally, because you're an intermediate lifter, you're an intermediate to advanced level lifter, your body can only naturally put on maybe about 1.5 to 1 pound maximum per month of muscle.
okay.
So that's like the maximum limit any natural person can put on. If you're on like steroids, it's a little bit different. But because that's the case, that means that if you're putting on a half a pound to a pound, the most you can put on, we want to make sure that like being in a 200 to 300 calorie surplus above your maintenance
Yeah,
is like a very small amount. But as long as we're keeping the protein high and we're training hard and recovering, we're going to make sure that all the weight that gets put on is going to be muscle, and we're not going to be putting on any fat.
gotcha.
If we're eating in like a thousand calories out, if we're eating in a surplus of 1,000 calories, we know that maximum we can only gain 1 pound max per month. So if that's the case, all that extra weight that you've been eating is just going to be fat that you're going to have to lose off later.
So essentially, with gaining a pound of muscle a month, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a big You're going to see a difference in that.
You're going to see a difference.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Cool. And so the next thing is going to be eating in a small caloric surplus, like we just mentioned.
Okay.
And then one of the other things I think is important that I want you to really prioritize is timing your protein and your carbs around your workouts.
Okay.
So this is obviously for if you're not training on that day, if you're not going to the gym that day, it doesn't really matter. So you can kind of ignore this. But for the days you are training, make sure that you have more of your carbs around your workouts. So before your workouts and after your workouts. It's important you do both, and I'll explain to you why. It's important you have it before your workouts because it's going to give you a little bit more energy to help you throughout your workouts. So you can lift more, you have the energy, whatever.
Gotcha.
After your workouts, your muscles deplete glycogen. It's fancy word for like, glucose, stored up glucose and whatever. But then you need to replenish the nutrients that were lost during training.
Gotcha.
So what you need to replenish them, what you need to replenish them with is your protein and carbs. So that's going to be important, especially when you're looking to grow muscle. So that's one thing. We talked about like strength training or progressive overload. Obviously, nutrition alone isn't going to build you muscle. You need consistent weight training until failure. That's going to be key. And yeah, you just want to make sure you're always pushing till you have like only 1 to 2 reps left in the tank, or sometimes 0 reps. That's it. Sleep and recovery, we don't really, you're already great at this, so I won't worry you too much. Next is going to be getting enough healthy fats. So this is something that I made sure was kind of built into your plan, but moving forward, as we kind of like keep this muscle building, as a main focus, as a priority, we want to make sure you're getting enough healthy fats, anywhere between like 20 to 30% at the minimum for your total calories. This is really going to help with your hormone regulation. So for you, this is going to make sure that you're keeping your testosterone high, having enough healthy fats. Some of the not so obvious sources of healthy fats are going to be like nuts, avocados, anything cooked with like olive oil, maybe fish, fatty fish. Are all great. And then last thing is going to be staying hydrated. So anywhere between like 2 to 3 liters per day. It's super important that you stay hydrated just because you are having caffeine throughout the day as well. Yeah. And the caffeine dehydrates you. That's what caffeine is. It's diuretic. And your muscles are 75% water. So dehydration does impact your performance in the gym and your recovery. So you want to make sure that you are not being dehydrated because this is going to impact your muscle recovery. And sometimes it can impact your gym performance. Any questions on anything we just went through?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Cool. And here's some nutrition don'ts. So number 1, just don't chase a scale. Just focus on your body composition, not just the weight. I really want to make sure there's a really big emphasis on, how you look in a mirror, how you feel on a day-to-day basis, because those things are just as important as the numbers on the scale. And then as you gain muscle, this can also sometimes offset when you lose weight. So you might not see anything change, but that's because you maybe gained a pound of muscle and you lost a pound of fat. So you're still net zero at the end of the day. So if you might look at the scale and get frustrated, but you might look in a mirror and you see, oh, I actually look a little bit better. I can see a little bit more definition, even though the scale didn't change.
Gotcha.
Cool. And then obviously you're not going to solely rely on cardio. Strength training is going to be the priority. The reason why it's so important to have a good muscle base and to build muscle is because this is actually going to be the most effective and the most efficient way to lose weight over time and to stay in shape over time. The reason why is because based off of how much muscle you have, that's going to determine your metabolism and how fast and how quickly your body burns energy. So someone with 300 pounds of muscle, for them to walk 1,000 meters, they might burn like 500 calories if they had 300, because they have to transport 300 pounds of muscle. Their muscles have to work hard. But if you have 300 pounds of fat, or if you have 150 pounds of muscle, let's just use muscle for example. If you have 150 pounds of muscle, you technically have to carry less weight over that same distance.
Yeah, so you're not burning as much.
So over time, as you add more muscle onto your body, doing regular activities like walking, opening the door, opening the fridge, driving in your car, you will burn more calories than someone who doesn't have as much muscle as you.
Gotcha.
So it
So
becomes easier to be in a calorie deficit and to
maintain that weight.
maintain that weight exactly. So that's the whole goal around building muscle as opposed to just focusing on cardio.
Gotcha.
To just make your life easier as time goes on. So someone like me, for example, I'm cutting, but I'm cutting on like 3,000 calories
Okay.
because of how much muscle I have and because of how fast my metabolism works.
Gotcha.
Because of the muscle I have, which is pretty easy to do. If I have 3,000 calories in a day, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot you can do with 3,000 calories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the other thing too is we shouldn't ignore micronutrients. So vitamins, minerals. This is going to support muscle function and how you feel on a day-to-day basis. So I already gave you like a customized list based off of what we spoke about. So that's good. And then don't eat too low carbs, too little carbs if you're going to be training hard. So I don't think you have this problem, but I know some of the clients I have,
Yeah, I love carbs. I don't have a problem with eating. Like, I love carbs.
they run away from carbs.
Yeah, I have no
Just
problem with
because they're like,
carbs.
oh, I don't
Yeah.
want carbs, whatever. Like I said, you're gonna help fuel your workouts recovery. Yeah. Aim for complex carbs, rice, potatoes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we said the realistic expectation when it comes to muscle growth
Yeah.
is 0.5 to 1 pound of new muscle per month. So this is gonna allow for like slow and steady gains without excessive fat, which is
Gotcha.
gonna be key. We don't want to do any extra work in the future. There's no point of gaining 5 pounds and 2 of it was muscle and 3 of it is fat.
Yeah.
I'd rather you just gain 2 pounds
Of muscle.
and
Yeah.
so you don't have to exactly just 2 pounds of muscle exactly. So that's the whole goal with like you doing a slight calorie surplus. So now last thing we're gonna speak about abs, how to actually see and grow them. So visible abs, just having a low body fat percentage and then doing proper ab training. So just like any other muscle, you need to train it with weight and you progressively overload. Nothing new here. Twice per week minimum. You want to do something which is like weighted and progressive, so you get stronger over time and slow and controlled movements. So the best weighted ab exercises that you can progressively
That cable
overload
rope
on.
is, yeah.
Yeah, the cable rope one is pretty good. And all you want to do is you always want to make sure you set like a rep range. So I really like the 8 to 10 rep range. I think it's a great rep range. But what you do with setting a rep range is you give yourself a reference point so that over time, you know, with the different weights that you're doing, how you're getting stronger and how you're progressing within that specific rep range, which is super important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Oh,
It does. Yeah.
okay, cool. So that will allow you to kind of like keep track of your progress over time. One of the other ones is like hanging leg / knee raises. So hanging leg raises is like the optimal one, but if you can't do that, then you can just start with just hanging knee raises, and then decline sit-ups. So those are some of the good ab exercises. Yeah, and so this is essentially all of the questions I think you had. And now if you have any other questions, we can definitely kind of like dive into those as well.
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. Like the nutrition and all of that, um, what exercises I need to be focused on,
Yeah.
and really just quantity. Well, no, quality exercises over like just doing a bunch of like time in the gym and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest things I've learned from working with you is I don't need to be in the gym for 3 hours.
You know,
Really,
yeah.
yeah. Like so. Other than that, no, I really don't. The rear delts and front delts and that upper back, make sure my upper back is really, yeah,